Dubai finally learns. Fazza's 60-year secret heart story. Dubai rises with a hush of dawn as if the city itself breathes a hidden echo, waiting to be told. And the desert carries an old whisper spoken by a heart that has traveled many seasons, without revealing its core, and now the wind brings the courage to uncover what it guarded for years. In the wide calm of early light stands Fazza, a prince shaped by the desert, a soul carved. In the shade of dunes and moonlit nights, his heart moving, like a falcon that refuses to surrender its flight, and yet inside him a memory glows, like the last ember of a fading fire, a memory bound not to youth but to timeless grace. Dubai finally learns the truth that hearts do not bend before age, nor do they measure affection in years that pass like drifting sand. His story begins not in mansions, not in royal halls, but in the quiet steps of a 60-year soul who once walked beside the rhythm of his destiny, unaware of the mark she would leave. She was a presence beyond seasons, a calm tide that arrived, without noise, her wisdom settling upon him like desert rain, rare, gentle, unforgettable. She carried stories of a life shaped by storms, yet she stood with the strength of someone who had survived all winds, and her silence was deeper than poetry itself. Fazza in his youth found a guide in her grace, though neither spoke of fate, and the city knew nothing of the bond that threaded their paths. She listened to the boy prince with a mind that saw beyond crowns. She offered lessons not in words, but in the warmth of her patience and her quiet certainty that every soul has a purpose waiting to be found. Years passed, but the thread remained unbroken, her face gathering the softness of age, her eyes carrying light. Even when shadows grew long, she became a compass for his wandering dreams, a lantern he looked toward whenever doubts clouded his horizon, and her presence became the shelter that no palace could replace. Dubai finally learns the story, but the story was never meant for noise. It was meant for hearts that understand that some connections outlive the illusions of time. For Fazza carried her guidance like a secret map etched deep within his spirit, leading him through trials, victories, heartbreaks, and the silent burdens of leadership. He remembered her voice like desert breeze, speaking truths without ever raising sound. He remembered her steady hands that never trembled, even when life shook its foundations. He remembered how she taught him that strength is not loud, that courage is not a roar, but a steady breath, a calm step, a heart that stands without fear of breaking. There was a day when he looked at the city from the highest tower, feeling the weight of duty pressing against his shoulders, and he wished for her presence the way a wandering traveler longs for a familiar shade, but she was far, age holding her like a gentle cradle, and still he felt her near as if time had no authority over memory. She never asked for recognition. She never asked for a place in the tale. Moves forward like evening light stretching over quiet dunes as Fazza walks through memories that rise before him like gentle mirages, not illusions, but truths shaped by years of silent guidance and tender strength. And the world around him softens as the story deepens. He remembers the first time responsibility placed its weight upon him, a moment when the world expected perfection, and he felt the pressure of every gaze searching for leadership within him, yet inside he carried uncertainty like a flicker of shadow, and in that moment he sought her presence, her steady calm that never judged his fear. She welcomed him with a smile, woven from understanding, her face lined with wisdom gathered through decades of endurance, and her voice touched his spirit like a soft tide, whispering that even the strongest falcon needs rest, and even princes must learn to trust the rhythm of their own hearts. She taught him that greatness is not found in noise but in stillness, not in glory but in compassion, not in crowns but in the quiet courage to rise each morning with kindness intact. And Fazza held these lessons like sacred treasures hidden within the chambers of his heart. As years drifted like sand, her presence became the silent heartbeat behind his growth. She listened when he felt unheard. She guided him when doubt clouded his horizon. She lifted him with words that needed no grandeur, only truth, and her truth carved a path that he would one day walk with pride. But time continues its journey even for hearts as strong as hers. Her steps grew slower, her voice softer, yet none of her light faded. She became a calm moon in the sky of his life, offering glow even when her strength began to dim, and Fazza watched her transformation with a tenderness he kept hidden from the world. Dubai never saw these moments. The world only saw the prince courageous, the leader graceful, but they never witnessed the silent anchor behind him, a 60-year soul who carried storms in her past and still offered peace to others without hesitation. There were evenings when Fazza would sit beside her, listening to stories from her early life tales shaped by struggle and resilience, each word teaching him that pain can bloom into wisdom and that scars can turn into guiding stars if carried with dignity. She never spoke to impress. She spoke to heal, and her voice held the warmth of a hearth on a cold desert night. One day, as the sky turned golden, he walked with her through a garden blooming with gentle fragrance, and she told him that every life has seasons, some filled with blossoms, some with thorns, and both must be embraced with equal grace, for only then can a heart learn its true strength. And he listened as if each word were a seed planted in the soil of his soul. He remembers how she would rest her hand lightly on his arm, encouraging him to breathe through the storms, encouraging him to trust the journey even when the path grew uncertain, and her presence alone carried a power greater than any title, for she held the story now reaches the final rise of its silent dawn, where Fazza stands at the edge of memory and destiny, feeling the weight of every moment that shaped him and the light of every soul that guided him. And at the center of this light remains the 60-year heart that touched his journey with timeless grace. He walks through the corridors of his past each step, awakening scenes that settle upon him like soft desert mist. He sees himself younger, filled with fire, yet uncertain, seeking a steady hand to help him understand the path he was born to walk. And she was always there, like a calm river flowing through the landscape of his becoming. Her presence carried no noise and no demand. She was the quiet truth that appeared in the shadows of his doubt, reminding him with gentle strength that purpose is not a crown placed on the head, but a flame carried in the heart, a flame that must be guarded with sincerity and courage. As time shaped him into a leader, he often returned to her wisdom, not in visible visits, but in thoughts that rose like prayers whispered to the horizon. Each lesson she gave him breathed life into the choices he made, teaching him to rule with compassion, to lead with humility, to treat every soul with the dignity they deserve. There came a day when he visited her for What he felt might be the last time, though no words were spoken of farewell. She sat in her old chair, the softness of age resting upon her form, yet her eyes still carried the glow of a heart that had lived fully and had given generously. He sat beside her in silence, and that silence became a language they both understood. She looked at him with pride, not for his title, not for his fame, but for the man he had grown to be, a man shaped by kindness, a man who had learned to listen more than he spoke, a man who held the burdens of many with patience that could only come from the lessons she gifted him throughout the years. He wanted to thank her, yet gratitude felt too small a word for the impact she left upon his life, so he simply placed his hand over hers, and in that single gesture their entire story was held. The years, the guidance, the quiet love made of respect and trust and unwavering support. Not long after that day, she drifted into a rest from which she did not return, and the world remained unaware of the depth of her influence, yet Fazza carried her memory like a sacred lantern glowing within him, unchanged by time, untouched by loss, for true guidance never dies. It becomes part of the soul it shaped. Dubai began to sense a change in him, not of sorrow, but of profound calm, a deeper gentleness in his words, a wider mercy in his actions. They did not know the source of this transformation, but it lived within him like a silent star, guiding every decision, every gesture, every dream. He often returned to the places they once walked, gardens filled with fragrance, corridors touched by their shared silence, and the desert where the wind once carried her voice. Like a soft echo, he stood in those places not to mourn,